So, something very interesting is happening on AEW television right now, and it's happening in front of our eyes. Around about 72,460 individuals are going after the AEW Men's World Championship. And it's my favorite thing about the show. Obviously, the brand new number one contender match is Swerve Strickland versus Ricochet, which was set up last night on Dynamite, and I really enjoy those two dynamics because Swerve isn't necessarily a good guy. I mean, he's a babyface, but he's crazy, as we know. He's done a lot of insane things. But Ricochet is now leaning into just being the biggest moron on the planet. The way he was dressed last night made me happy, deep in my soul. That's what I want from some of my heels, just to come out in the most ridiculous garb possible, because that's just what you're going to do. And I presume that Swerve Strickland will win that and become the number one contender. But it could be Ricochet, right? I actually think Ricochet has reinvented himself very well in AEW. And obviously, straight away when you say that, people go, does that mean you didn't think he was very good in WWE? Nope. I loved him there as well. In fact, I actually think it's done Ricochet the world of good from a performing point of view, because he now feels to me like a totally different character. I think that's great. I think that's awesome. If one day he goes back to WWE and he falls back into that persona, well, I enjoyed that persona too. Again, I think this is more about where Ricochet thought he would be happiest, and more power to him. But I would assume that Swerve wins that because it's been not a year. I mean, in August, it would be a year since he lost that championship, but it is time for somebody of Swerve's level to go back to it, right? So instantly, he has to be in the conversation. However, at the same time, obviously Adam Copeland is in the conversation to become the next AEW Men's World Champion because he is taking on Jon Moxley at AEW Revolution. Now, Copeland becoming the champ, I don't mind it because I think he does such good work. Like, I don't know whether he sat down with Tony Khan or whoever and said, listen, we kind of need the babyface to get a few wins here. But over the last few weeks, involving Jay White and involving a Willow Nightingale and just, having the Death Riders be taken out, not for dinner, but get pulverized with chairs, don't get me wrong, it's totally unhinged and insane behavior once again. All babyfaces at AEW are crazy people because they're smashing people with chairs, but it just put a bit of joy in your heart, because even if you do side with the Riders of Death because you're one of those people, which I totally understand, deep down you understand the heroes and you understand the villains. And if over and over the villains win and win and win, just naturally be like, well, I don't want to watch this anymore, because again, you want some positivity in your life. So Willow coming out to smash Marina with a chair sounds so ridiculous. And Adam Copeland doing that, and obviously Jay White getting involved too. It was just nice. And the reason I think it's so interesting is because you also have Hangman Adam Page versus MJF. I don't want to jump around too much, but I think you should get a sure winner there. And I don't mean there can't be shenanigans or ridiculousness. I don't think it should be a double count out or a no contest. I think you just need to pick who is going to be our next guy. And that person should start chirping about the AEW World Title too. Now, of course, they won't have an official decree to go after it. Well, either the person that loses should try and find a way to get there as well. So that's two more people. But the Adam Copeland thing is interesting because, yes, if he did win it, it would create controversy and people would be like, this is a good idea because he's an ex-WWE guy, which is a term that I hate. Listen, I'm not saying that some people aren't turned off AEW because of that. That's totally up to you, but I can only view a product in terms of how I see it with my eyes because I'm me. Big revelation there. And there, for 20 years plus, you can only work in WWE. So some people are just going to have a taint. It's not the right word. It's a horrible negative word, but they're going to feel like ex-WWE guys because there was nowhere else to make a living. I don't think that should be held against them. But it does mean that if Adam Copeland wins it, a lot of people go, oh my gosh, we're just sort of repeating fire here. But I just think he's so damn talented. But I also think there's actually a way to do this. Jon Moxley has been a decent world champion, but we can all agree the Death Rider storyline hasn't really been what we were hoping. It kind of ventured off course. Kind of felt like there was going to be a new member, then there wasn't a new member, or some kind of high power controlling the strings, and that's okay. You throw things at the wall, it doesn't work. But I absolutely think there is ways and means, or something you can do at AEW Revolution, where you maybe potentially crown multiple new world champions. And this is what I mean by that. I think AEW's had a run of great shows. And in order to keep that momentum on, I do think it's time to take a risk, because at the moment, it kind of feels like it's the AEW fan base that has felt an uptick in the product, which is great. Apparently, Tony Khan's in the weeds. Sweet. Start pulling those weeds out of the floor. Keep on doing it. But sometimes you do just need to sort of create a, what's the word I'm looking for, a tectonic shift on your own, and changing your world championship is going to do that. I do not think Jon Moxley needs to come out of AEW Revolution with the championship, even if that was the plan. Of course, the long-touted rumor was that Darby Allin will come back. We're not living in a Darby Allin world right now. I think he should win the title at some point, but that's not where the tea leaves are blowing. So I think there's two massive things you can do to really get people talking, like I say, that also involves all the other people we're talking about at the same time. Let's say that Adam Copeland wins the title. You can have that moment. Not too dissimilar to what we did at WrestleMania 40 Night 1 with Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest and CM Punk, etc. Christian Cage then comes out to cash in his contract or sign his contract, whatever those people do, And that is a switch that you could do. I know people are like, oh my gosh, Adam Copeland and Christian are going to be the champions. But that's fine, because Christian could lose the title at the next pay-per-view. He could lose it on a Dynamite. That may pop a rating. That old famous phrase. I'm not saying that we should start hot potatoing the title, but I'm saying if you are going to put it on then someone who will hold it for a long time, a Hangman Adam Page, a Swerve Strickland, somebody else I'll talk about in just 1 second, then it is okay to throw it around, because once again, you are trying to have an uplift in your entire product, so you have to take a risk. Like, I don't like comparing AEW to WWE anymore. I think we can as fans. I prefer this over that. I prefer the way they do this, etc. But they have become two very distinct products, and I think that's actually great for the industry, because it's almost like movies, right? You want to watch your big blockbuster, you've got this. You want to watch something that's a bit more indie-rific, for lack of a better term, you've got this too, but it's on TV, and that makes it exciting. But WWE used to throw their championship around all the time, and eventually you move past it and you get to where we are now. And AEW has never really done that. I'm not saying to do it for the sake of a swerve, apart from Swerve Strickland, or to do it for the sake of doing it. No, you have to have the plan. But if you sit down and go, well, if we did do that, it's going to trigger this, which gets to that. My point is this: Christian could win it. The next pay-per-view, somebody else wins it, not Adam Copeland. They then, spin off into their own feud. You finish that, then they become the tag team. They're going to do that eventually. We all want it. But you could also do, and I think somebody put this on the internet somewhere. I'd had not a proper discussion about it, but a half discussion about it with a friend. Then I read whatever this person put. I think just get in your X feed. I hate calling it X, Twitter feed these days. And you just go with it. But we do not 100% know the rules of that cash-in contract, right? Every time so far, the sort of storyline, and admittedly, sometimes AEW forgets the things that they have said, but I can only go with what I do know. You have to put your name on the dotted line, right? You have to sign it, and that's the equivalent of, in Money in the Bank, the referee going, are you sure? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. Are you really sure? Yes. And then 42 hours have passed. But if you do have to jot a name down on it, you could go full-on sports entertainment. I know it doesn't make sense, but again, you're forgetting what wrestling is. And it's actually Jay White that goes, Adam Copeland, I'm not with you at all. He signs his name on that piece of paper. He can then take out Adam Copeland, and that would also be a way to get to Adam Copeland and Christian becoming a team, because now they've got a common enemy. Don't get me wrong. Do a lot of work with the patriarchy to make Christian Cage a good guy, but I'm happy for them to try. And that way, it justifies why Jay White was perfectly happy for Adam Copeland to get a title shot before he did. And I just think Jay White's better as a heel. Jay White as a semi-long AEW World Champion, I think is great, because he has been hanging around that main event scene. I think the more people you can tell your fan base, this guy's a star, believe in him. And even if you don't see Jay White in that sense now, which I would understand, based on what he's done so far, we've also seen in New Japan that he can fill that role, which is why I wanted to be a heel, because he was so good as that guy. And I guess it's like an Okada situation. Which version do you want to see in AEW right now? And given where we are and the momentum we have, I think that would be good. But I also understand if you're like Simon, that's the most WWE thing I've ever heard, as I now get dragged into the tribalism. I understand the words and the descriptors that people like to use, but it's an option, right? And it means coming out of Revolution, you could have one of 3 people be the champion, or 4. Obviously, John Moxley could retain that title. But if Swerve wins, he is obviously a good guy. So I don't see how you would do Adam Copeland versus Swerve. Absolutely a match I want to see. Of course, you could do babyface versus babyface. But then with the Death Riders hanging around, maybe you're going to get some sort of shenanigans there. Whereas Jay White would have a feud with Adam Copeland. That's babyface versus heel. Jay White versus Swerve Strickland, now you can see why I'm really sort of hoping this stuff does happen, is the kind of AEW match I want to see. I understand that, that Jay White at the moment, to some, is always going to feel like a New Japan guy. But when he does have his defining run in AEW, you just know he's going to go do good work. Swerve Strickland has made himself one of the best AEW dudes. So if you can sort of get that going and you compare them off, I'll be like, man, it feels different. It feels fun. The championship is on the line. So we have stakes here. And then if off the back of that, you have a Hangman Adam Page and an MJF sniffing around their toes, which is the worst phrase I'll ever use, then it's awesome. It also probably means a Christian and Edge, stupid brain, and a Copeland and John Moxley may be able to spin away. They're distracted trying to kill each other, which is why all of these guys are fighting over the championship. And then we get to the stage where I want to get more than anything, where once again, don't mind wherever anybody came from, but of course I want to see the stars that I affiliate with the company being at the top of the card, and we haven't had that for a while. I'm not saying that I want a 4-way, and I don't, but if we are sort of circling around Swerve Strickland, Jay White, MJF, Hangman Adam Page, that to me is awesome. And I also just think the Death Rider storyline works better without the championship. I understand that's what the briefcase is all about, but these guys being in the upper mid card, I just think supports what you're trying to do with the people you're trying to make stars. That's the way that I would do it. It's kind of like what the the Hurt Syndicate are doing at the moment. They're just working with everyone, and they're really cool. They can be the champs. That's fine, because you know that on top you are going to have some other people. So I think it's awesome that there are so many people that are vying for the AEW title, because it just tells you by proxy this thing is important, and I should care about it too. And I just don't think the Death Riders thing has worked overall. Again, way better now, but I just think coming out the back of the pay-per-view, you may start falling back into that pattern, which is what nobody wants. And if we all agree we do have some momentum right now, strike when the iron is hot. Even if you have to do some nonsense stuff, like if I had told you that Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson were going to debut on the same night, like that's a terrible booking. Why are you wasting all of this? When you see it in motion, it just makes you feel good. And I think we can do that here. And again, Christian doesn't have to win it. And it doesn't matter that you would end with craziness if Adam Copeland wins it, because it would get a pop in the building, right? And that does count for a lot. And as long as when you move on to Dynamite, you have a different world champion, I don't think that's a problem at all. I don't even think it's a problem if it's Christian. I think that would have to be short, just because I don't think you want to take away. It's just the law of diminishing returns. We've seen Moxley with the belt, then we see Copeland with the belt. You see Christian with the belt, and you do start thinking about the other guys going, well, I really would like them to be thrown into the mix. And if Hangman beats MJF, for example, how does MJF ensure that he sort of stays afloat? I mean, that from a storytelling point of view, not from a literal point of view, because obviously he's going to be fine for ages. And I don't know, man. I just think maybe Tony Khan decides he wants to stretch out the MJF Hangman stuff and do a few matches, which would be awesome, because AEW doesn't really do that with their programs. So I can't remember what the next pay-per-view is after Revolution, Double or Nothing, whatever the flub. If you do have some crazy match between MJF and Hangman, and you've got Jay White and Swerve going at it, that's a product that gets me really excited. And if beneath that too, you're doing stuff with names I've heard of before, and I really like the Adam Cole, Daniel Garcia stuff, but now I almost feel like we're crossing the streams. The Ghostbusters told us to never do that, because the trios division all of a sudden is super fun, and you look through the whole card, oh my gosh, we got this team, we got that team, and at the moment it's just being fueled, which it should do, because it's one of the most old wrestling ideas in the book, but it's being used to fuel the Adam Cole versus Daniel Garcia TNT title. Because the trios division now feels like it has been reborn, I kind of want them to just go over there, so we can continue doing trios matches over here, and we just need to get those titles off the Death Riders, or just have them compete with them. It's difficult at the moment because the story is they've been murdered by Adam Copeland, but once we get past all this, which again is something I'd advocate for at Revolution, I just think Wheeler Yuta, Pac, and Claudio should start defending them on as many shows as possible. There could be a TV title, for lack of a better term, but, you know, FTR have about 32 different people that could be their third man. The Undisputed Kingdom have lent that way, and, you know, you've got the Ops that we didn't see on Dynamite. The Patriarchy are a three-man team. Again, the stuff with Christian could deviate there. But that's just touching the surface. There's other people you can put together. Like at one point, it felt like the Righteous and Elijah were going to be a threesome. You could just bring them in. Doesn't matter if they're signed or not. So there's so much potential, I feel like, on the table at the moment. And what I really love, I'm super pumped about WWE at the moment, but I look forward to Dynamite again. And I really like the fact that in Collision now feels like they're connected. And I do make mistakes. Sounds weird, but I don't know whether it is a mistake or whether I'm just trying to get used to the new world we're living in, because after the Grand Slam Australia show, I thought it was a little bit disappointing that Harley Cameron wasn't on it, but as someone pointed out to me, she kind of has made her home on Collision. I was like, that's a very good point, but it's the show after the pay-per-view, and I think because Harley Cameron could have won, she didn't, no issue with that either. Keep that spark going, which is what we also did on last night's Dynamite, where she beat Deonna Purrazzo with her weird reverse crossroads. She may have done that before and I've never realized it. Very odd move. Very strange move, but I get we're trying to come up with something new. But that's kind of what I think AEW is doing far better at the moment. Just, you know, feeling that somebody is heading in a certain direction and just letting it play out. And if all of a sudden it starts to sink, then you need to figure out a way to make it swim again. And listen, it's not perfect. Deonna Purrazzo absolutely should be in a bigger role. I don't think the Mercedes Moné match at Revolution kind of feels like it's already over before it starts. It'll be great in ring and we can really enjoy it. But I don't think Mercedes is going to lose those titles, and she shouldn't either at the moment. That's the problem. You need to build up a challenger. And I am excited for two reasons about Toni Storm versus Mariah May Part 3. I think it must be, maybe Part 4. I think they will do a crazy stipulation. I think we'll sum that up on Saturday, because of course the pay-per-view's in 10 days. But whoever wins that one, of course it should be Toni Storm, I would draw a line under it and I would find Mariah May a different direction. Maybe she can go feud with Mercedes, and I would try and get a few, you know, new people into the title shot for Toni Storm. Again, this doesn't really work in terms of a face-heel dynamic, but a Chris Statlander, a Willa Nightingale, a Julia Hart, a Penelope Ford. There are people that are really, really good that we could kind of spark and try and elevate them too. And it's great how long Mariah May and Toni Storm have been going. We should do that with more people. Again, MJF, Hangman, Adam Page would absolutely benefit from that. But the Women's Championship could use just a little bit of a flame being lit beneath it. as could the TNT title. International title feels really quite strong at the moment, so let's keep that going. Orange Cassidy versus Takeshita was absolutely brilliant, and it had some goofy wrestling for life in it. I think Orange Cassidy is a savant, man. He's like a classical painter. We're going to remember him for years. He just totally gets it. And now we know it will be Takeshita versus Kenny Omega at Revolution. I would give the belt to Kenny because he would be my world champion in a dream world. That's a guy that can get involved with all of these people and almost be the elder statesman to all of them. But we're not getting there at the moment. I presume it will be Okada versus Omega, Continental versus International, all in. And then after that, I would just get Kenny back into the main event. But if you're not going to do that, the guy needs a belt and the guy needs to be taking on the best that you've got. That's Takeshita, that's Okada, and that's everybody else. Pumped that he's on Collision. I want to see what he's going to say. But if you do all of this, and a lot of it culminates at All In, which of course is happening in Texas this year, AEW feels in good stead. Now, of course, the comments are like, well, they don't do very good ratings. I couldn't give a flubber about ratings. I find them interesting because I'm a nerd, but they do not determine whether or not I enjoy a show. If that is the case for you, I'm not going to rag on you because it's just not fair. You're allowed to decide what gets you out of bed in the morning, but I also think you're totally wacky. I don't understand why that would even be a thing, and I don't want any promotion to do badly. I've talked about this 100 times. I want all wrestlers to earn a lot of money, and I want them all to be safe and secure for the rest of their lives. But, you know, the whole Willow thing's cool as well. I'll take Willow versus Rina Shafir. Feels like a feud you can actually win. Willow never wins feuds, and she would, I mean, that's why it'd be great if Mariah May won it back, and you could throw Willow Nightingale into the title scene. I think Willow Nightingale should be the next women's champion. How you do that with Toni Storm, I don't know. You're never going to be able to turn her heel because she's so good. And we need to get these tag team titles sort of rocking and rolling again too. Like, they're in a much better state than they were. The Hurt Syndicate are one of the best things on the show. I'll take them versus the Outrunners. I popped when that happened. And of course, the Murder Machines will still be involved. But I would love it if maybe when the Young Bucks come back, we can elongate that as well, as I continue to use my word of the day. I just think there's so much potential to, I'm going to use the term draw some stuff out, but that sounds a bit negative, right? I don't mean it that way, but it just allows you to invest a little bit more. And it is something that WWE's been awesome at over the last 18 months, you know, having these stories that are concurrent week to week. And that's what the Death Riders was meant to be. And I don't think you should throw that idea out of the window just because that one wasn't as succinct as you were hoping. It still had its moments, but I think you have your own potential at Revolution to just change things up a bit. And I think that's not what AEW needs. I just think a few fresh things here and there with the AEW World Championship would be awesome. I think we need to see it again. We need to have that out there case. We need to have, again, a bit cliche, but you know, some old school classic Dynamite starts with the world champion promos. Don't need to go on for 25 minutes. They can be 5 minutes. That's fine. Like, the time limit doesn't matter. But just establishing I'm the star, I'm the man, and I'm feuding with this guy, and you want to tell those stories throughout the show. That's been the real plus the Death Rider stuff, and I would assume it comes from Adam Copeland. Again, this week he was just taking out everyone. We've seen it 100 times before, but it's nice. You have a thread that runs through Dynamite. It keeps you interested, and it just builds to the program that we are getting. So, yes, I think it's awesome that this many people want the AEW World title, and really within the next 18 months, Hangman should be the champ, MJF should be the champ, Swerve should be the champ. If you want to make Ricochet the champ for a little bit, absolutely. Will Ospreay needs to get back in there. We've talked about Kenny Omega. Takeshita absolutely has the potential to do that too, especially with Don Callis in his corner. Kyle Fletcher will be on that cusp, probably more so in 2 years' time, but he's there as well. We just need to get the characters over, more mic time, but I think you are being disingenuous, unless you just don't like what AEW does altogether, which again is totally your choice. But if you are into it, I think you'd be being a bit disingenuous not to realize there has been an improvement in quality over the last few weeks. And again, I think you can culminate that AEW Revolution, hit the reset button a little bit, and then continue to say this is what we're going to do. But there's a lot of cool matches on that show. Of course, it will go on for 72 years because AEW pay-per-views do. But that's like going into a pizza restaurant and going, where's the hamburger? If you ain't aware of it now, what the flub have you been doing? Now, of course, AEW videos are always the most controversial, which is nuts, but just drop me a comment below and say, Simon, you're a shill, and we hate you, and we want you to fall down the toilet. None of these things hopefully will happen, but you can say it. Click the video on the screen as we do talk about who the hell is going to sell their soul to The Rock. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. There's a bunch of links down there in the description. Please do click them, including grillermind.com/Simon. Some products are 30% off with my code at the moment. I use these fitness codes because I love lifting weights. Otherwise, Simon316 on all social media. Simon Miller on TikTok. Simon J. Miller on TikTok. Simon Miller on Cameo. ProWrestlingTees.com/Simon Miller. Big Cartel. Simon Miller. Just type all this stuff in there. Again, it's right down there. I appreciate you. Just enjoy all professional wrestling or hate it. Whatever gets you out of bed in the morning. Like I say, see you soon.